Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Maisa Sheni, Perek Dalid, Halacha Dalid. We're learning today Daf Mem Aleph, and we left off on Daf Mem Aleph Amid Aleph, 3 lines from the top of the Amid. Now, we have on Daf Mem Amid Beis, the Gemara brought a Braisa, speaking about a woman who sent a shliach to be makabel, to receive her get on her behalf. And when it comes to the delivering or to the receiving of a get, like I mentioned, the Kitzur, the way that Rambam organizes these halachas, there are 3 types of shluchim, but we're only focusing now on the 2 options, which is either the man sends a shliach lohilacha, which means that the shliach represents him, which would then mean that when he gives he gives the get to his shliach, she's not divorced because the shliach is like his hand. When is she divorced? V'nasan biyada, when the get was delivered to her, which would mean that after sending a get in the hand of a shliach lahilacha, if the husband wants, he's able to retract. When the woman is the one who sends a shliach lekabala, being that the shliach now is representing her, the shliach is minimally considered to be an extension of her. So the moment the husband puts the get in the hand of her shliach, she is already divorced, and he's unable to retract. Okay, there is a shliach lohiva, it's not negeya here. Now, what happened in the Braisa, which is an elaboration of the Mishnah, is that she sent a shliach lekabala. Unlike the Mishnah that says that if the husband explicitly says that I don't want you to be representing her, so he breaks his ability of representing her because he also needs to consent. He does not consent. And then he says, hoylechla. There are other expressions. That's the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, since he explicitly undid the shliach lekabala, he re-established this person as a shliach lohoylacha. So like any shliach lohoylacha, he's able to retract. The question will be, now comes in the Braisa, where the husband doesn't say those words, efshi shetaskabala. The shliach comes and says to the husband, I am her shliach lekabala, to which he responds, hoylechla. Now, this can be understood 2 ways. Let me just add a little detail. If he says nothing, vadai, see how powerful silence is. He explained who he is. The man gives the shliach a get. Vadai, she's megoreshes. The fact that he needed to say hoylechla, that in itself is something. Question is, how are we to understand that something? So that's a machlekes, Rabbi and Rav Nosson. Rabbi holds that the husband cannot retract. Rav Nosson says the husband could retract. Rab Chagai brought this as a question to the following. We had in our Mishnah the question, Meiser Sheni, get and Kiddushin, where when the husband, let's just use the example of a get for it to be almost the same. When a man gives a get to his wife, God forbid, but when he gives the get, he has to say, ideally, he said nothing, but they were speaking about giving a get, they were asukin ba'oisa inyan, and he said nothing. Rabbi Yossi is the one that says, dayoy. Rabbi Yehuda says, tzarech lefarish, there's no get. How are we to understand it? That Rabbi Yossi allows the conversation, which is happening or just happened, to inform on the present. So Rabbi Chagai is saying, well, Rebbe appears to be following Rabbi Yossi. She said, I'm a shliach. The shliach says, I am her shliach lekabala. The man who said, hoylech, lo, we can understand that 2 ways. So Rebbe allows for the previous conversation, which is where he informed the husband, I am a shliach lekabala, to inform the meaning of hoylechla. That means that he's agreeing that you are a shliach lekabala, and taka, because of that, take it to her. Doesn't mean take it to her. He really doesn't have to take it to her, but that's what he means. So he cannot retract. Rab Nosson that says he could retract seems to be following the sheet of Rebbe Yehuda that says that the previous conversation, the fact that they were in this discussion, does not inform the present. The present is not clear. So tzarech lefarish. Same thing over here. The reason why Rab Nosson says the man could retract the shliach says I'm a shliach lekabbalah, doesn't mean that's what he meant. Adarab, just use the words hoilichi la. Take it to her is words that you use by a shliach lahilacha, even though it could be understood otherwise. But he doesn't subscribe to us allowing the prior conversation to inform the current intention. Sounds great, but it's not great, as the Marafulda worded the kasha in the end of Daf Mem Amid Beis, that Rab Chagai is asking, why do we even need to have a machlokes tanoim, Rebbe and Rab Nosson, if all they are doing is applying our Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda to a new case? All that was needed is for Rebbe to say, I follow Rabbi Yossi. You can make a general statement. This Rabbi Yossi, by Meiser Sheni, by Get, by Kiddushin, we will understand that on our own, that he will hold that you cannot retract. All Rab Nosson L'choyre should have done is, I paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. The Gemara on Daf Mem Aleph on the top just made it clear, just for us to know that in this machlokes of Rebbe and Rab Nosson, we, meaning the Chevra and Talmud Yerushalmi, we don't know who to paskin like. And there's a rule. Whenever a get is given and we don't know whether it was effective or not, we go l'chumra always. Mugoreshes ve'ena migoreshes. Problem. So that's we left off with the kash. And the only solution will be, as the Gemara will beautifully articulate it, is that the machlokes between Rebbe and Rab Nosson goes beyond the machlokes of Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, but that is going to be appreciated when we're going to chazer right now a statement that was said by many people. I think it was all b'shem Rab Ze'era. Rab Ze'era was the one that quoted b'shem Rabbi Shaya, that when you read the Mishnah, don't think Rabbi Yehuda always argues with Rabbi Yossi. Actually, if they were mamish asukin ba'oisa inyan, they didn't go off the direct discussion, which is the case of the Braisa, fakert, both Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda will hold that she's going to, that dayoy. So we're going to see that Rab Nosson is saying something beyond, he's not arguing. Rab Nosson is going beyond the machlokes Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, and that's going to be great. That's number one. The second topic before the new Mishnah, because today we're learning halacha hey also on Hamid Beis, is should we apply the same topic that we just spoke about in the Braisa by a gift? In other words, let's just say that I'm presuming that you're going to send me a gift. But when do I acquire the gift? When I make a kinyan on it. What were to happen if I send the shliach lekabbalah a gift? Same thing. And you, the donor, the gifter, when you see the shliach, you don't say, I don't want you to be a shliach lekabbalah, but you say, hoilech, take the gift to the recipient. Would we apply the same machlokes Rebbe and Rab Nosson? Twofold question. This is very, very significant. I don't remember learning this topic before. Do we say that by a gift, it's not even shayach to send a shliach lekabbalah? A gift is different than a get. A get is written for her. Her name is in there. I know that the husband doesn't have to give it to her, but it's shayach to her. By a gift, even if I plan to gift something to you prior to you receiving it, how is it yours? Like, how would you even have the ability to send a shliach lekabbalah for something with which you have no relationship to? And even if you can send a shliach lekabbalah, maybe everyone will agree that the gifter can nullify that shlichus because it's weak, even without explicitly saying could be everyone would agree that if the gifter says hoilech, it means he's mavatal the shliach lekabbalah. That's going to be a very fascinating topic. And Daf Hey Yomid Beis, I'm happy Vlad is here. We're going to have a Mishnah, two parts. The second part will be mathematical, but it's easy to chop, hopefully. The first part of the Mishnah will be what happens if you have a coin that was semi-used for Meiser Sheni. We learned this many times already. So let's say I have a coin called an Isser, all right? And I already deconsecrated on this Isser produce that is half of the Isser's worth, which is fine. You don't have to deconsecrate the entire value of the coin at one go. Fakert, we learned even before, people would hang up a silver coin in Yerushalmi, and slowly you would use it to be mechalal, to redeem. Okay. Then the person took this coin to a different location, And what's fascinating, this I know from Brazil, like what's the value of $1 in America? $1 is $1. Take $1 to Brazil, there's the black market and the legal market, two different values. The same currency can have a different value in different locations for various reasons. What happens if the coin was taken to another location? The emissaries, I'm just using that as an example. It doesn't even matter if the coin was taken. It can also be where the person and the produce is. And they're saying in a different location, they're doing another step of deconsecration, of redeeming. But in that new location, this coin now is worth more or less. What do we do with that fluctuation of the value of the coin? That will be the first topic of the Mishnah. Second topic of the Mishnah would be when Bechlal and Amaretz is suspect to not have properly tithed. And therefore, whatever you buy from the Amaretz is called Demai. And as we said so many times, it's not pshat that you have to do all the steps again. Truma Gedoyla, for sure he took off. Halachically, for sure he took off. Meiser Rishon, you have to take off. Only to take off Trumas Meiser, you keep the Meiser Rishon. Meiser Sheni, you have to take. Because it's yours. Okay. What happens if you see an Amma Aretz redeeming his Meiser Sheni produce on a coin? Which means he took off Meiser Sheni. You didn't see him taking off Meiser Sheni, but you see him already redeeming it on currency. Do we presume, if he took off Meiser Sheni, he took off Meiser Rishon? Or not? Three-way machlokes, Tanakama, Beishame, Beisilol, as we'll see when we learn the Mishnah inside on Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis. Okay, so Chevra, Daf Mem Aleph, right, we're up to the kasha that Rabbi Chagai asked. Rabbi Chagai asked this question of, this is on top of Mem Amud Beis, Rabbi Chagai boy kume Rabbi Yosi, the Amoyre Rabbi Yosi, as we explained. So Amalei, that's where we're starting. So Rabbi Yosi tells Rabbi Chagai, I like your question, I have no answer. And therefore, he threw the question back to him. Uma biyadach. Okay, I don't know. What do you say? It sounds like Rabbi Chagai was his teacher, right? Or not, but I think that's what it sounds like. So Rabbi Chagai asked this Talmud the kasha. The Talmud didn't know, but the Talmud asked the Rebbe knew. So what do you say? So he says, that since we just learned this yesterday, Marab Ze'era, in the name of Chia Barbun, in the name of Ada Bar Tachlifa, B'Shem Rabbi Shaya, that even though we had an hour Mishnah on the Machlokes, that Rabbi Yos, that if you separated Meiser Sheni, and Loi Kara Shem, Rabbi Yosi Oimer, Dayoy, Rabbi Huda Oimer, Tzarech Lefaresh, but nevertheless, B'Shem Rabbi Shaya Maplig, and where is there an argument? Only B'Shef Legal Datin Liyoram Acherim. Only when the man and the woman that we're speaking about, let's say, get, just to be consistent, prior to him giving her the get, they diverted their attention to other topics. And even though other topics, Aviv, doesn't mean they spoke about sports, they spoke about topics related to a divorce. I gave an example yesterday. They began to speak about custody. They were speaking about, that's why Rabbi Yosi says Dayoy. But they weren't directly speaking about him giving her a get. Only there is where Rabbi Yehuda holds it's not enough that they were asukin, that we don't say that their prior discussion does not inform the current intention, and therefore the get is not valid. Tzarech lefarish. But that is only because they were not directly speaking about the topic. If they were dealing with what? With him letting her know, or her letting him know, you are giving me a get, we are getting divorced. So then everyone will hold, even Rabbi Yehuda, even though it was not said, Berachel bitcha aktana, that what, Harei Zegitech getu. Now you'll appreciate, says Rab Chagai, why my comment is not correct. My question is not correct. Because over here, what the Braisa was speaking about is a shliach lekabbalah comes and tells the husband, I am here as a shliach lekabbalah to receive the get. That's asukin ba'oisa ingen mamish. What does the man say? He doesn't say kabbalah. I get that. What does he say? That hoilichila, take it to her. That's asukin ba'oisa ingen. Fakert, according to B'Shem Rabbi Shaya's qualification of our machlokes, there is no machlokes. Not only will Rabbi Yosi hold that the past conversation informs, Even Rabbi Yehuda holds that them talking directly about giving a get will halachically establish that his giving her the get is hadei zegitech, and it's going to be valid. In other words, according to this, Aviv, the shliach telling the man, I am a shliach lekabbalah, l'choura should have informed that his hoilichila means the way she said it. Everyone would hold that he cannot retract.
Everyone meaning Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi.
Very good. That means that Rab Nosson is saying a chiddush that's going beyond Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Because nevertheless, there's a machlokes. Even if the husband gave the shliach the get immediately, when the shliach says, I'm a shliach lekabbalah, still Rab Nosson says, we don't assume that the husband agreed or to give the get on her terms. That's gavaldik. And I'll tell you why. Why? In other words, this is a chiddush. The question is, why would he say that? Or we are not saying, Danny, that Rab Nosson is arguing with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. He's not arguing. And I'll tell you the difference. Like I mentioned before, when the shliach comes and tells the husband, I am here to receive the get, if indeed that is what it is, that means that the husband is giving the get to the shliach as the shliach said. What should have the husband said? Nothing. By the way, in our Mishnah, that's exactly what happened. The husband said nothing. But here he should have said nothing. The very fact that he has to say, Hoilichila, that's Rab Nosson. Ooh. The fact that he said anything means that I'm giving it on my terms. If I would be giving it on your terms, I would not need to say anything. And this is really gavaldik. Okay.
But isn't there a lashon that he would say that even Reb Nosson would agree that he remains a shliach the Kabbalah?
No. Rab Nosson says that he could retract. That's what the Machlok Rebbe says. He cannot retract. Rab Nosson says he could retract because he became a shliach lohailach.
All right, but the shliach did not accept his terms. He's not hired by him.
The shliach accepted the terms by the shliach accepting the get. And
didn't she
make
hire
a very
him?
good point, because if the shliach would be a shliach like Kabbalah, he doesn't even have to go back to her. As a shliach lehoilacha, he has to give her the get. You're making a good point. If the shliach has to be learned, the fact the shliach should tell the husband, one second, what do you mean hoilichila? One second. I'm a shliach like Kabbalah. I already walked the mile from her to you. I'm not walking back a mile. He should say that. Speak up. You don't speak up, he's agreeing. Silence is acquiescence.
The Kabbalah,
that's the same point.
His job ends when he receives it.
Only when he's a shliach like Kabbalah. As a shliach lehoilacha or a shliach lehoiva, the job ends when he gives it to her.
Okay, and if he's not learned, he complicates the matter. And if he is...
Yeah, we're not speaking about not learned people. Yeah, there's certain presumptions that cannot be said by people who are not aware. This is not even not learned. This is not understanding of what's going on.
If he doesn't argue, he's accepting both
That's
of
right.
them.
That's a good presumption. Yes.
Thank you.
Now we're going to take this braisa. We're not going on our Mishnah. We're going to the braisa. Rebbe Rab Nosson, same thing. We are wondering whether we could apply the same to a gift. Says the Gemara. Rab Ezra asked in front of Rav Mana, Yakir needs a coffee, double espresso. Could we say the same thing by a gift? Why would a gift be different? So the Gemara says words that have to be understood on two levels. The words are Adam oisa shliach lekabel davar she'eno shaloi. Can you b'chlal make a shliach lekabala to accept something that's not yours? No. Is the get hers? Yes and no. Not just no. Of course, the man doesn't have to give her a get. We know that. The get belongs to him. When a man gives a get today, before anything, the scribe, the Beis Din, will give the man the whole box with the paper, with the ink, and he'll gift it to him. It's his stuff, doesn't matter. But the get is written lishmai ulishma. Not just written for him. His name is in it. Her name is in it. The get is about her. Same thing by a shtar shichrut, by an eved. Very similar. There we know there's a shliach lekabbalah. Sure. And I'm going to go more by kiddushin. The whole topic of shlicha is a mesechtas kiddushin. Kiddushin can be given through a shtar. And even if I'm not mistaken, in a shtar kiddushin, which we do not use today, their names are not written, but the intent was for him and for her. So there's no, but the li, and it's for them. There's the them in the him, me, you. In a gift, there's no me or no you. The coffee is our coffee. If halachically I'm the legal owner, it's mine. Yes, I have the right to give it to you. So number one, could you make a shliach lekabbalah to get a gift? Maybe bichlal not. Number two, there's 2 points. Even if you're going to say yes, you could, because it's not about the item, it's about the power of shlichus. Yes, I can appoint you to represent me, period. Don't even call it a shliach lekabbalah. Once you are my proxy, once you and I are on some level, right, whichever of the 3 levels of shlichus you're going to apply, once we have this connection, so then I can give, the shliach can give. I can receive, the shliach can receive. Okay, even if we're going to say that, perhaps, since again, there is no obligation on the gifter, there's to give the gift to the recipient, there is no inherent relationship between the item gifted and its recipient. So therefore, breaking the shliach lekabbalah might be easier, even according to Rab Nosson.
Is there a concept of a paid shliach?
I'm sorry, even according to Rabbi. Rabbi holds that the husband agreed, maybe by a gift, the Rabbi will be moided to Rab Nosson that we don't interpret the gifter's words as I agree to your terms. No. What were you saying, Kevan?
Oh, isn't there a concept of a paid shliach? And doesn't that make a difference? He's already paid?
No. No, I'm not talking about the connection between the mishalech and the shliach. I'm talking about the relationship between the item gifted and the recipient. The item gifted is not like a get. That's the Gemara's point. A get is about her, not the item gifted. So Amalei, so Rav Mana tells Rabbi Ezra, come on, over there by a get. Now he's adding a gewaldike shtickle lamdus over here, and that is there a requirement, listen to this, Aviv, for a man who's giving a get to his wife, his ex-wife to be, to transfer the ownership of the document to her? No. The fact that the Torah uses the words v'nasan biyada, it means only what it means. He has to give it to her. But he doesn't have to transfer its ownership to her. I want you to know that she owns the document. But who got her to own it? The Torah. That's his meanings. The Torah was mizaka, her in the document itself. He only has to do an act of giving. Like, let's go by kinyonim. By metaltalin. What's the ideal kinyan by metaltalin? Meshicha, Hagba. Even though that common practice, when a man delivers a get to his ex-wife to be, so really there's so many details. She stands with her hands cupped like this. After the get is properly folded halachically and cut, as Beis Din does, he is told to drop it in her hands. And then they tell her to close her hands. Then they tell her to put the get under her arm and to walk towards the door. Now, there's a reason for every step. But the moment the get was dropped in her hands, according to most opinions, that she's divorced. Even though she didn't do Meshicha yet. She didn't do Hagbah yet. She doesn't need to do a kinyan. That's unique. The Torah says, you give her the get, the nasan biyada. We don't want her to take it. That's why he drops it. Because if you were to place it, think about it. Make believe you're the fundraiser like me. When someone puts a check in your hand, I don't know if you're giving or the guy is taking. You're holding yourself back not to... No, we don't want for her to do any taking. He gives. The moment he gave it, she's divorced. Now, there's a step. There is a divine step that when he does that step, Hashem grants her ownership in the document. So since the Torah is involved in getting her to own it, it's easier for her to appoint a shliach. Vehi oisa shliach lekabel davar shu shalah. However, islach meimar b'matana adam oisa shliach lekabel davar she'enoi shaloi. No, you cannot. That's what he's saying. For sure not. Now, for sure not, the way we are learning the Gemara, he asked a double question, Aviv. Number one, could you appoint a shliach lekabbalah? And even if you could, maybe the husband's, the gifter saying, hoylech, or to a woman, hoylichi, maybe lokula alma, that broke the Kabbalah. The Gemara is answering both levels. Level number one is, you bechlal cannot appoint a shliach lekabbalah. For a gift. And now on Amud Beis, that's the va'oid, and the way we are learning, the Gemara is not 100% certain in that. If not, you don't need to go further. If you can't even appoint a shliach, there's nothing to talk about. Va'oid, the way we will learn pshat is, and even if you're going to tell me that, no, you're right, there's no atoida zikoloi matana, still, maybe, right, that the concept of shlichus has nothing to do with what are you appointing the shliach for. The Torah gives us the koyach to make someone to be our shliach. Even if that would be the case, still everyone will hold that it's easy to break the Kabbalah of the shlichus. Rabbi Yossi says, you have to add in the name of B'Shem, Rabbi Yaakov Bar Zavdi. Whenever there's too many B'Shems, they just put it at the end. In the name of Rabbi Bo, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, listen to these words, Omar litein matana lechaveiroi. If one declares his intent, I am going to give someone else a gift, and then the person changes his mind, so halachically, the dinei adam, the man is able to retract it. So he's saying a gavaldik thing. Since b'chlal, when it comes to gifts, unless a kinyan was made when you committed to give a gift, that's different. That's the kinyan of a vart. Unless you made a kinyan, just making a verbal commitment is not binding in Beis Din. So based on that, the breaking of the power of the shliach to be mekabel is something very easy to do. And the moment the owner says, hoylech, since until when a kinyan is made by the recipient, he's able to retract his promise, vadai, we interpret hoylech doesn't mean the way you want, which would mean that now it's already his. I still reserve to myself the ability to retract if I so want, and that can only happen if the shliach is no longer a shliach lekabbalah. So when it comes to giving a gift, until when it's done, it's done. I didn't say that. First of all, if according to Mem Amud Aleph in the bottom, Mem Aleph Amud Aleph in the bottom, the Gemara is saying in the Yerushalmi, you b'chlal cannot appoint a shliach lekabel get. Period. It's not shaykh. A gift. Now, what's the Amud Beis? What are we adding? That even if you're going to argue that you could, that means that the Gemara is not 100%. If not, we wouldn't go on. Even if you could appoint a shliach lekabel get, we will by default assume that the gifter, unless he says, I accept you as a shliach lekabbalah, or he doesn't say a peep, which is silence is acquiescence, we will always presume that the gifter is only giving it to someone, in between person, as a shliach lahaylacha. Because b'chal, by a gift, it's known that until when the recipient receives it, the man is allowed to retract. The Gemara is going to go into the ethics of this in a moment. People wonder about it. I want to say that the next few lines until the Mishnah, b'chlal should not be confused between a promise to tzedakah that according to the Ran and many other all the way in halacha, amirasi legvoya kemisirasi lehedyet is said by tzedakah. So we're not talking about making a pledge to tzedakah. We're speaking about giving a gift to a hedyet, from a commoner to another commoner. And that's a rule, that even though you made a commitment, until when you follow through with your commitment, you are, by the law of the court here, not b'din hashamayim, you can retract.
Rabbi, just what we learned this earlier, like on an Aleph on the bottom, wasn't that only for a girl that she can't appoint a shliach for a gift?
No, nothing to do with gender. This, of course, by a get a shliach like Kabbalah is only shayach by the woman.
No, but wasn't the whole thing that the reason you can't appoint a shliach is because you can't it's because I'm not telling you wouldn't own, so to speak.
Because since the recipient doesn't have any relationship to the item that supposedly he's receiving, he has no connection to it, he cannot accept it through someone else.
Oh, but then the woman,
because the get was written for her, she already has a relationship with this document, even though the man who doesn't have to give it to her. True. But it's a document written for her. She already has a connection to it. So it's easier for her to appoint. That's the logic over here. Okay. Now, when he made that statement, come Rabbi Yossi, Im Rabbi Yaakov bar Zavdi, and they challenged Rabbi Yochanan. How can you say that if a man makes a commitment, he says, I'm giving you a gift, the din is Chayzer boy. Now look inside the Torah Oira Shalom to know psukim that we have in Parshas Kedoshim. Moiz Neit Tzedek, just scales. Avnei Tzedek, Evan is the weight, right? Just weights. Now, Ephas Tzedek, Hin Tzedek, Rashi says, Epha is Midas Yavesh, Rashi writes in Chumash, and Hin is Midas Lach. We're speaking about different measurement utensils, items that are used to make sure that whatever is being transacted is accurate. And the Torah emphasizes that they have to be just. That is the pshat. The problem with the pshat, the question on the pshat is that it's superfluous. The Torah has to go through every single type of measurement. You know, Moiznit Tzedek, Avnit Tzedek would have been clear enough. And this Chazal is teaching a derasha in the word hin. Again, the pshat of hin is a measuring cup for a liquid. You know, here in America, liter, half a liter, pint, whatever the measurement is. The drasha of hin tzedek means yes. And by the way, hin doesn't only mean yes. Hin means that when you say yes, you should mean it. When you say no, you should mean it. That there is a chazal that says that the Torah is obligating us to be honest. So where's the honesty in making a commitment and then Rabbi Yochanan saying, well, until when you give it, you can retract. And the Gemara gives a very important answer. That this drasha, that your hin should be tzedek, your yes and no should be an honest yes or no, means just that. It means that if I am committing to give you a gift, when I make the commitment, I should mean what I'm saying. If I meant what I'm saying when I said it, that's tzedek. I meant it. And
what if conditions have changed?
By a gift, since you don't have a relationship with the item that I am committing to give to you, it's not yours. It's not yours. And if I want to retract, I'm allowed to retract.
So I get it.
Until when you get it.
What if the conditions have changed? Then you should be allowed to retract.
Let me say it like this. Ethically, you should keep your word. These are psukim in the Torah. Chol hayotzim mipiv yaseh, the Gemara says, isn't only when you make a neder, anything that you say, but that's between me and God. But my obligation to you, unless we made a kinyan. If I make a kinyan, that's already a whole different story. That's why we make it can be a kinyan sudar, which is the most common kinyan. What we are saying in Daf Mem Aleph Amid Beis is that even when the recipient appointed a shliach, and let's say it's effective, the very fact that the gifter knows that when they make a commitment to gift, they are always able to retract until when the recipient receives it. The presumption will always be that a gifter will never give something in the hand of a shliach lekabbalah, because if the gifter would accept that person as a shliach lekabbalah, then he cannot retract anymore. Now, if the shliach says, I'm a shliach lekabbalah, and the gifter doesn't say a peep, he agreed. But the case of the question was, the gifter says, hoilich or hoilichi, loy or law. Everyone will agree that hoilich means I'm not accepting Kabbalah. Because a gifter wants to reserve the right to be able to retract until it comes into the hand of the recipient. even if you can appoint a shliach like Kabbalah, and really you can't even appoint a shliach like Kabbalah. Amen. And so they answered that the hin tzedek means b'shah sha'amar hin tzedek. However, when you say it, you should mean what you say. But after you made a sincere commitment, you are allowed to reconsider. Now, again, I'm going to just go to cave into what you're saying. I'm allowed to reconsider. I want to make it clear. If I don't have a reason why I'm reconsidering, only other than I changed my mind, that's not ethical. Let me go further. If there's a reason for my reconsideration, then it's even ethical. But we're not even going about bedinei shamayim or ben adam la shamayim. We're speaking about me and you. Oral commitments are not binding in a Beis Din. The best example is the Minig Yisrael by us, is that when people get engaged, even though we don't write a document, but we make a kinyan. In Yiddish, we call it a vart, but a vart without a kinyan is not binding. And we make it binding. You know,
You mean the
you have
cloth?
two edim, and you take an item that belongs ideally to one of the edim, and the chassan picks up the item in exchange of his word. That's already a kinyan. The kala picks up the item in exchange of her word. What's their word? That they're going to take each other to the chuppah, that they're going to go to the chuppah with each other. All right. May that happen to our children with the right one at the right time. And if you're young, for you, but don't rush, you're too young, Aviv. You have many years to go. All right. Halacha, hey, we're good. Let's go by to now. Mishnah has two completely unrelated topics. It's both mathematical. Maybe Rabbi put it together because you have to make cheshbon for both. But the first topic is similar, not the same, but similar to a topic that we just had regarding price fluctuations. I mean, so there's different types of price fluctuations. One type of price fluctuation would be that the currency itself has more value or has less value. Fascinating. So the example the Mishnah is going to speak is about someone who's using an isar. And as we also learned, that when you have a coin, copper, silver, gold, little, big, doesn't matter. When you use that coin to redeem the kedusha of Meiser Sheni, the coin and the product doesn't have to have the same value at all. It has to have at least its value, shava b'shava. But if I have 50 cents worth of produce and I take out a dollar bill, there's nothing wrong with that. And when I say that I am being poided the kedusha of the 50 cents produce on the dollar bill, all what I did was now half of the dollar bill is sanctified as mama in Meiser Sheni, and half is still chulin. And that's the case of the Mishnah. That haminiach isser, a person set aside an isser to be used to redeem Meiser Sheni, and I'm going to use the words over time, because this person lechatchila wasn't planning to redeem a whole isser's worth. And va'achal all of chetzyoy doesn't mean he ate it. It means that he used half. That will be the example. Now, v'halach, the example the Mishnah is giving, this has to do with how do you describe, Aviv, whether a coin is worth more or less in any given area? How would you do that? What are you measuring the coin with? I don't know how financial people do that today. You know, today many people use the dollar as the basis for all currencies. How much is it vis-a-vis the dollar? The way we are doing it here in Chazal is that we are taking a coin and we are wondering in this location, how many figs, how many dates can you buy with this coin? So if in one location, this same Isur can buy 10 figs, and in another location, the same Isur can buy 20 figs, or 20 dates, or 20 apples, whatever. That means that in the new location, the coin is worth double the value. Or that, but I'm going to word it the way I'm wording it right now. Because it works either way, because we're using this coin to redeem produce on the coin. And we just had that you look at the current location. That was the whole chiddush. You look at the right, how much is it worth here? We had that in the beginning of this chapter. So now, v'holach l'makom acher, v'harei hu yoytze bepudyoin. So what are we talking about over here? That there are two isarin in one pudyoin. There are two isarin in one pudyoin. A pudyoin is worth double an Isser in this location, the coin is worth double. I'm giving you my example. That in location number 1, you can buy 10 te'enim with the Isser. Now, you redeemed half. How many te'enim did you redeem? 5. So you can argue you can only redeem 5 more te'enim. Says the Mishnah, no. If I went to a new location of it, and in this new location, the whole Isser can buy 20 te'enim. Now, I know half of it is used up. How much do I have left? Half. How much can half buy in this new location? A whole 10. So I can redeem another 10 te'enim. Oichel olav oid Isser. I'm saying oid Isser, meaning in the old location, 10 is an Isser. I can do a ganze new 10. Based on the rule that you follow its current location, and it goes in both directions, as we'll see. Yes.
What's happening?
Yes.
I have
So does,
I set aside as money that I'm gonna redeem my sashimi produce on.
Yes.
Right? And you're saying I have my own produce in 2 locations?
Yes. Yes.
So first I did half, whatever.
Yes. Exactly. I want to add one detail. We're not taking in the chaimish.
Produce,
Yes, you have produce in the other city,
that's also my sashimi.
and that's also my sasheni. And you went there, and now you want to redeem that, and we're not taking the chaim in both parts of this Mishnah that are not related, superficially not related. It's on the premise that the guy is using the legal loophole. There's no chaimish here. So you had 5, and now you have another 10. You have Vlad.
so what this means, if I understand it correctly, is with that Isser, because you're traveling from one location to the other, you mamish can redeem 15.
Very good.
Zajac,
Yes, you understand correctly. Now, the Mishnah wants to go the same rule in the other. It's consistent. What happens if in the opposite, you set aside a pudyan? We said a pudyan is worth 2 isodins. So you set aside a pudyan, and v'achal olav chetzri, same thing, you used half. So how much do you have left, Aviv? You have left 1 Isser so far. One, right? Half of the pudyan is used, half of the pudyan is chulin. And now you went in a place where the pudyan is worth half of the value. So what can you do? Only half of now. In other words, the fact that I redeemed half is used. Whatever the half is valued at in its current location, that's what you can do to your benefit, to your detriment. That's first part of the Mishnah. Where the person who's doing the redeeming and the produce is located. I was thinking, I don't think you have to take the coin with you. It's where the person and the produce is located. Now,
But you do have to be next to the produce.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, even though I'm not certain, but that's the way they're saying. Everyone is saying that you went, even though it sounds like you took the coin there. Maybe you even have to take the coin there. Leave that open. Okay. Now, second cheshbon in the Mishnah. Based on the rule, Ha'aretz is presumed not to have tithed things properly. Here, someone is witnessing not that the Ha'aretz separated Meiser Sheni, but he's witnessing that the Ha'aretz is redeeming an Isser of Meiser Sheni produce onto an Isser. You're seeing that. Vadai, how does he have Isser of worth of produce? For sure, this Isser worth of produce was Meiser Sheni for what? It's a 10th. So I can now get from this Ha'aretz that amount, the 9 portions, and I don't have to take off Meiser Sheni. Question is, do I have to take off Meiser Rishon off it? Do we say that since I am seeing how this Ha'aretz is redeeming an Isser's worth of produce on a coin, can I now presume that he not only took off its counter of the remaining, but he even took off Meiser Rishon? The Tanna Kama says, yes, we do always. And we're going to give the number. So, Hameniach Isser Shal Meiser Sheni, if you see an Ha'aretz, you're not seeing him separating. Doesn't matter. You're seeing him redeeming that which he already separated onto a coin of an Isser. Since the Tanna Kama holds that the presumption is that not only did he take off Meiser Sheni, but he also took off Meiser Rishon. So let me go backwards, guys. One Isser's worth of Ma'aser Sheni proves, Yakir, that he had how many Isodins? How many Isodins did he have after Ma'aser Rishon? 10. Now, how much, if we are presuming that he took off Ma'aser Rishon, how much produce did he begin with? To come to a place where after he removed Ma'aser Rishon, he has 10. The answer is 11 and then a ninth. Because 10% Ma'aser Rishon from 11 a ninth is going to be, I know the ninth will go down a little bit, 1 and a ninth, a bit less. And how much do you have left now? 10. So now you can presume that if I am witnessing this Am Ha'aretz redeeming an Isser's worth, he has the worth of the 11 ninth that's tithed. Let's read it inside. Hamaniach Isser shel Ma'aser Sheni oichelol of achad aser Isur and ve'echad mimeya be'Isur, which is the ninth. Based on the presumption, not only did he take off Ma'aser Sheni, he took off Ma'aser Rishon. Beis Shammai says no. Beis Shammai says that when you see the Am Ha'aretz redeeming one Isser of Ma'aser Sheni, all you are allowed to presume is that he took off Ma'aser Sheni. You have no idea whether he took off Ma'aser Rishon. Vis-a-vis Ma'aser Rishon, when you buy, so if I'm going to buy from this Am Ha'aretz, whatever I'm buying, I have to take off that Ma'aser Rishon. That's the meaning, HaKoil Asara, not 11 and a ninth, only 10. And now Membeis, Beis is ahead ahin. Beis Hillel says depends. If the produce is known to have been Tevel Vadai, then we are allowed to say that this Am Ha'aretz, now that we see he's taking off Ma'aser Sheni, Beis Hillel agrees with the Tanakama. That is a halachic presumption that he took off Ma'aser Sheni and really also Ma'aser Rishon. So which means Bevadai Achadasar. By the way, Achadasar already means and the ninth. It's self-understood. But if we know that prior, that the produce that this Am Ha'aretz bought to begin with was the Mai, then we say that even though you see that he took off Ma'aser Sheni, doesn't mean he took off Ma'aser Rishon. So by the Mai, sure you have to take off Ma'aser Rishon only to take off Trumas Ma'aser. But he didn't do that step. No, but you have to separate it and then you get to keep it. You have to separate it because you can't take off Trumas Ma'aser if you don't prior to that take off Ma'aser Rishon. Ubidamai, I'll agree with Beis Shammai that all you know from the one is that there were 10. I want to make it clear, not that there is another 10, that there is a total of 10. Because once you take off the Ma'aser Sheni from 10, how much do you have left? 9. You don't have 10 left. That's what the Mishnah means.